This is a demonstration of the Kramer Pi Compressor from Waves. This plugin is available as an individual product or also part of the Kramer Tape, Tubes, and Transistors bundle. This software is PC and Mac compatible. The plugin formats that are supported are TDM, RTAS, Audio Suite, VST, and AU. There are both mono and stereo versions of the plugin that are included. You can use this plugin in your audio sessions up to 192 kilohertz and up to a bit rate of 24 bits. This plugin is a digital model of the famous Pi analog or hardware compressor. Let me go over the controls now for the actual plugin. It's pretty basic as far as the compressor goes. You have a threshold knob, which sets the gain reference point where the compression is going to begin. You have an output or gain makeup knob. So with a compressor, you are affecting the dynamics of the signal coming in. In the cases when the compressor is acting or the signal is above the threshold, the compressor is actually going to be turning down the level of the signal. So it's very conventional to have a knob that can be used to apply makeup gain or turn the signal up after you compress it. Then you also have decay time or a release control, as it's typically seen on other compressors. You just have a few settings that you can select. It's not continuous. There are just a few discrete release times that you can choose. It's 100 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds, 400, 800, 16, and 32. Obviously being the longest delay time, which is actually 3.2 seconds. Then you have your compression ratio, which can go from a 1-to-1 ratio where actually no compression is taking place, and all that's happening is the plugin is adding some analog color to the signal that comes in. Then you actually have your different compression ratios, a 2-to-1, 3-to-1, a 5-to-1, and also a limiter, which is in theory an infinite to 1 ratio. So those are the main controls of the compressor. Up here you have metering, where you can look at this meter up here showing your gain reduction, or you can monitor the output or also the input if that's preferred. Then you have a switch over here also if you would like to control the additive analog noise that the plugin adds. So you can turn it off, or you can add in 60 hertz noise. That's typical of hardware that is used in the United States, or 50 hertz, which is based on if you power the hardware over in Europe. So it's just a few different kinds of noise that you can add in, and the idea with this is just to add in some more realism to a digital simulation, because in the analog world there's going to be some background noise that is added in with the signal. And that's the main settings of the plugin. I'll also show you the presets that are included here. So there are some for vocals. There's also a fair amount for drums and guitar and bass. That's not to say you can't use this plugin on many other kinds of instruments, but these are presets that were designed by Eddie Kramer himself, known for working with the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, and Led Zeppelin, and many other people, just to name a few. And these are his presets that he set up for the plugin. You'll see most of them are for drums, and I'm going to demonstrate the plugin now on just a multi-track drum session so you can hear how it sounds. My impression of this plugin is that it's great for drums. It has a pretty fast attack time. You know, that's one thing that you'll see sometimes on other compressors, that there's a knob for controlling the attack and the decay or the release. In this kind of plugin, there's actually no control over the attack, which was because the original hardware did not have the attack control either. So it has a relatively fast attack time, which is great for drums. And then what happens, you'll hear when you use the plugin and you do a fair amount of compression, what you can use the plugin to do is bring up some of the sustain in your drums. So you'll hear, hopefully with the snare drum, especially, I'm bringing out some of the sustain that's taking place in the drum, whereas when I bypass the plugin, you kind of lose that sustain. That's really my impression. Because this is a digital model of an analog compressor, where I think that it shines best, or it's most useful, and where it adds the most kind of analog color, analog flavor to your signals when you do a fair amount of compression. So it's not just 1 or 2 dB of compression, but when you get into the 5 to 10 dB range of compression, that it's going to start sounding different than just your typical digital compressor or stock compressor that might come with your DAW. So let me play back the drums, and I'll bypass the plugin and add it back in, and you can hear what it's doing. Basically, all I've done is, so for the kick drum, I just have a decay time. I have a relatively fast decay time for most of these, and relatively reasonable level of the threshold for most of the instruments. I went in already and played around with the threshold. For the snare drum especially, I'm going to use a low threshold so that I'm compressing a lot more of the signal, and then I bring up the gain more with the output. And that's similar to what I'm doing with the rooms, is I have my room mics over here, and I have a lower threshold so I can really squash those room mics. And that's kind of the typical sound for heavy rock music that Eddie Kramer's known for, that kind of sound, and where this compressor, I think, really sounds great. So let me play it back. I'm also using a pretty high compression ratio there on those as well. So here it is. Here's how it sounds.